everyone, and I think we're going to have a very interesting morning full of topics that need reflection and need interaction among us. So as you know, Olivium is a collaborative effort of journalists and academics and scientists, researchers that come from the Middle East and from Europe, and they want to share their concerns regarding how media and politicians deal with these kinds of topics. So we've been invited here by Olivium today to share with you our ideas and our perspectives in relation to the different issues that are going on in the Middle East and in Europe and the way they are conflicting with each other. So I will briefly introduce my colleagues in the table. First of all, we have Elena Avilés. She's a researcher from the from the University of Malaga. She's also a professor of criminal law, and she's specialized in terrorism and international relationships and radicalization. Dr. Ahmed Al-Hussein, he's professor at Damascus University. And he's currently residing in Leiden University in the Netherlands since 2013, and he's an expert in Islamic and Middle East studies. Dr. Nejmedin Ajar, he's an assistant professor from the Department of International Relations in Mardin Artuklu University. And finally, we have Dr. François Bourgat. He's a senior research fellow at the French National Center for Scientific Research, and he's been a permanent resident in the Middle East for over 22 years. So as you can see, we are a panel of experts, academics, and professionals that have been working on these issues. So thank you all for being here, and we can start with the first presentation by Professor Elena Avilés. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Becerra. For me, it was important to make the framework, to show you some information, some data that can clarify some situation, and that can be like the point or the beginning for the session. So, some of the topics for today will be the one that you can see on the screen. We will start with the main reason for today's migratory movement. We will speak about the impact or fail or weak state or structural violence and the terrorist phenomenon. And we also speak about how do armed conflict influence migratory movement. So all these questions, well, I don't have the answer. I would love to have it, but I think this is something that we can discuss and clarify today. So, what are the main reasons for today's migratory movement? Well, this is a really difficult question. And here you can see the migratory map. This is the map from Frontex. I hope everyone can see. Here you can see 3 of the main migratory routes to Europe. We also can see the number of illegal border crossing during this year, during 2021. And we can also see the top 5 migrant countries of origin. So, as you can see on the map, Syria, for example, is in 2 of these routes. Probably is due to the armed conflict. So you can see in Western Balkans area and the Eastern Mediterranean. You also can see Afghanistan, probably because of the last event. And you also can see in the Western Africa a huge number of sub-Saharan national people. So my question is, what is happening in those countries? I can see or I can recognize that some of the reason can be the impact of the failed or weak state, armed conflict and structural violence, not only in the migration movement but also in the terrorist phenomenon. So, what happened? Well, the thing is, here we can see the 4 countries most impacted by terrorism according to the Global Terrorism Index. So as you can see, Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, and Syria. Can we say that these countries or the failed country could be a scenario for the rise of terrorist group? Well, we don't know. I would like to discuss today. But as we can see, there is something similar that I would like to share with the panel because I think it's something interesting to discuss today. So here we also can see the deadliest terrorist group. We can see the Taliban that represent the 41% of the attack of the global scale. From this number, 87 is in Afghanistan. Everything was before the last event, in the summer event. The second one is Boko Haram. This group has more than 1,000 deaths. Almost 70% is in Nigeria, and 20 of them is in Cameroon. That even in 2015 has its peak. Now it represents the 67% of the death in Syria and the 66% in Iraq. And the last group is Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a filial of Al-Qaeda and represents the 87% of death in Somalia and the 13% in Kenya. The weak states or the instability can help or can provide some scenario for this kind of situation, right? And here is one of the main questions: how do the armed conflicts influence the migratory movement? So the thing is, most of the irregular immigrants, as we saw before, come from countries with armed conflict or instability. So this is the first map that we saw at the beginning, and we can see how there is a lot of Syrian people, people from Afghanistan, from Nigeria, from sub-Saharan area. So I would like to bring to the table these numbers. I would like to bring to the table this data, because I think this can be like a good starting point for today, for the debate. This can be like the beginning for common policies between Europe and the Middle East. So how can we manage a situation that is outside our countries, but it's affecting directly to the European security? So that was my main question: how instability outside Europe constitutes as a threat to European security policy, and how can we solve it? So I would like to keep this question open, and I would love to debate, to have a discussion about this issue. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Avilés. Second, we will have our colleague, Dr. Ahmed Al-Hussein.
شكرا لمركز أوليفيوم على هذه الدعوة الكريمة. سيكون محور ورقتي التي سأقدمها هو فلسفة اللجوء من خلال التجربة السورية، وستكون الأمثلة من خلال اللاجئين السوريين إلى هولندا. أشكر بداية البروفيسورة إلينا التي اتجهت نحو الحركات الإسلامية وأثرها في اللجوء، وأنا سأركز على أمر آخر وهو أثر الأنظمة الاستبدادية وأثر الدكتاتور، أثر الأنظمة السياسية في حركة اللجوء. هذا جانب آخر من جوانب فلسفة اللجوء. أولاً لدينا قراءة عربية لأوروبا، وهي فكرة الانتقام وفكرة الثأر. هناك قناعة ثابتة كرستها الأنظمة السياسية قبل عصر الإنترنت في أذهان معظم المواطنين العرب أن كل الخراب وكل التأخر وكل الفشل الذي تعاني منه الدول العربية سببه أوروبا، سواء من خلال فكرة الاستعمار أو بعد ذلك. هذه الفكرة المركزية في العقلية العربية منذ نحو قرن إلى هذا اليوم تجعل المواطن العربي وتجعل الشخص العربي لديه موقف فلسفي وفكري إلغائي للشخصية الأوروبية، لأنه يعتقد أن كل المشاكل التي تحدث معه وكل التأخر الذي يصيب الدول العربية سببه أوروبا. لذلك هو حين يذهب إلى أوروبا لاجئا يعتقد أنه ينتقم من أوروبا، يثأر من أوروبا، يعتقد أن لديه حقا عند الأوروبيين يجب أن يعيدوا إليه هذا الحق. فهذه فكرة فلسفية تحرك معظم حركات اللجوء واتجاهها نحو أوروبا. الأمر الآخر، تاريخ اللجوء السوري في العقد الأخير مر بمراحل عديدة. ففي المرحلة الأولى كان اللجوء إلى الدول المجاورة لسوريا، الأردن، تركيا، العراق، لبنان، لأن الناس كانت تعتقد أن هناك حلاً قريباً ستقوم به أمريكا وأوروبا، هم أصحاب القوة في العالم، هم الذين يستطيعون أن يغيروا الأنظمة، سيغيرون النظام السياسي ثم نعود إلى سوريا. لكن بعد مرور سنة أو سنتين بدأت الناس منسوب الأمل والحلم يخف، وشعروا أن فكرة العودة إلى سوريا صارت فكرة بعيدة. لذلك بدأت موجات اللجوء إلى أوروبا بعد مرور سنتين من بداية الثورة في سوريا. وأنا شخصياً حين وصلت إلى أمستردام عام 2013 سألت مارسيل كوربورس هوك، وهو كان سفير هولندا إلى سوريا، هل سأقوم بشراء أثاث لمنزلي جديد أم أشتري سكند هاند 6 أشهر سنة وأعود إلى سوريا؟ نظر إلي مارسيل كوربورس هوك نظرة طويلة وقال لي: اجلس يا أحمد، ستبقى أكثر من عقد من الزمان. وفعلا ها هو الآن عقد من الزمان يمر وأنا أجلس في هولندا. أختم هذه المداخلة بالقول إن فكرة اللجوء هي فكرة أصيلة في النفس البشرية، وعادة عبر تاريخ الإنسان متى ما شعر أنه جائع أو خائف أو غير آمن يقوم بالانتقال من مكان إلى مكان آخر، وهذا مرتبط بالبداوة العربية. دائما الناس تذهب حتى تحصل على الطعام أو تنتقل مع الإبل والأغنام من منطقة إلى منطقة أخرى. الآن نحن لدينا اللجوء أسبابه استبدادية، أسبابه سياسية. الآن ما حدث في سوريا، لدينا نصف الشعب السوري خارج سوريا، ليس بسبب إيس، ليس بسبب القاعدة، بسبب النظام السياسي القمعي الموجود. التدمير الذي حصل بسبب النظام السياسي الموجود، الخراب الذي حصل كذلك. هذه هي المشكلة الكبرى. لو زال هذا الاستبداد وهذا النظام قبل أن ينسحب من السلطة لما وصل الوضع في سوريا إلى ما وصل إليه. ولكن يبدو أن يمكن أن نمشي أحيانا مع فكرة العامة التي راسخة في أذهان السوريين أن أوروبا لا تزال تريد أن تنتقم منهم، وعلينا أن نبحث عن حلول. نقاش، يجب أن يكون هناك ساحات حوار، وهذا المؤتمر شيء جيد بين اللاجئين وبين الدول المستضيفة حتى نفهم بعض. لا يجب أن يكون هناك بيننا نفهم بعض ونفكر معا ما هو الحل، ما هي المشكلة، وما هي الحلول المقترحة حتى نحل هذه المشاكل وكي يعود الناس إلى بلدانهم. الفكرة الأخيرة هي هذا الكم الكبير من اللاجئين في أوروبا الآن هم في اتجاهات فكرية مختلفة، في اتجاهات دينية مختلفة، هم ليسوا سلة واحدة، هم يختلفون فكريا وسياسيا وإيديولوجيا. الدول الأوروبية تعاملهم ككتلة، كباكت واحد، ولكن هذا غير صحيح. الدول الأوروبية يعني تحتاج إلى دراسات حتى تعرف كيف تتعامل مع هذه الكتل الفكرية والتوعوية والسياسية والدينية الموجودة في أوروبا، لأنهم ليسوا كتلة واحدة، فهم طوائف وأفكار واتجاهات ومذاهب وسوى ذلك. يمكن أن يكون هذا المؤتمر والحوار معكم أحد المداخل للبحث عن حلول ومخارج لفكرة اللجوء، وشكرا جزيلا لكم.
Thank you very much, Professor Al-Hussein. And now, Professor Necmedi Nacar. Thank you.
Sadece siyasal istikrarsızlık, terörizm tehdidi değil, daha geniş bir perspektiften bakmamız gerektiğini düşünüyorum olaya. Elbette Orta Doğu'da istikrarsız siyasal sistemler, başarısız devlet sistemleri, zayıf devlet sistemleri ciddi bir sorun teşkil ediyor. Fakat eğer mümkün olsa biz bu göç hareketlerindeki eğilimi görebilsek, hangi yıllarda, hangi siyasal atmosferlerde ortaya çıkmış, daha farklı bir perspektif ortaya çıkarabiliriz buradan. Ben ekonomi politik bir perspektif sunmak istiyorum size. Bu süre zarfında artan işsizlik, artan gıda fiyatları, bölgedeki Arap Baharı sürecinde gördüğümüz kitlesel hareketlerin, mobilizasyonun en önemli sebeplerinden birisi olarak ben öyle olduğunu düşünüyorum. Örneğin mesela 2008 yılında yaşanan krizle birlikte şöyle bir perspektifle başlayalım isterseniz. Bugün Orta Doğu bölgesi ya da göç veren ülkelerin çoğunluğu Körfez'in periferisinde yer alır. Körfez, Basra Körfezi'nin çevresinde yer alır. Yani Afrika ülkeleri, Orta Doğu ülkeleri ve Güney Asya ülkeleri. Ve bu periferideki ülkeler önemli ölçüde Körfez'den akan fonlara bağımlı durumdadırlar. Elbette Sayın Katılımcı çok güzel ifade etti. İşte Suriye, Irak gibi ülkeler çok sayıda göçmen veren, en çok göç veren ülkeler arasında yer alıyor. Fakat daha büyük bir tehlikeyle karşı karşıya olabiliriz önümüzdeki süreçte. Çünkü bugün göç veren, daha çok göçmen hareketine yol açan ülkelerin nüfusları çok sınırlı. Yani Suriye'nin, Irak'ın 30 milyon civarında bir nüfusundan bahsediyoruz. Halbuki daha büyük bir demografiyi barındıran Mısır gibi mesela, Pakistan gibi daha kalabalık nüfus olarak kalabalık ülkelerin içine düşmesi muhtemel bir siyasal istikrarsızlık, bir iç çatışma çok daha büyük bir göçmen hareketine yol açabilir. Örneğin Güney Asya ülkeleri, Pakistan gibi mesela veya işte İran gibi veya Mısır gibi çok daha yoğun bir nüfus barındırır bu ülkeler. Ve bugün terörizm, başarısız devletler, zayıf devlet sistemleri, ulus inşa etme projelerinin başarısızlığa uğraması elbette göçmenliğin sebebidir. Fakat daha kısa dönemsel olarak baktığımızda, 10 yıllık süreçlerde baktığımızda bölgeden batıya doğru hareket eden göçün temel sebebi ekonomi politiktir. Yani insanlar niye radikalleşiyorlar? Terörizm olgusu niye tırmanıyor? Bu önemli ölçüde ekonomi politik bir sorundan kaynaklanıyor. Dolayısıyla bugün bölgeye baktığımızda gıda fiyatlarında çok ciddi bir artışın olduğunu, hükümet kaynaklarının, rezervlerinin ciddi manada eridiğini, büyük ülkelerin, yani demografik olarak büyük nüfusu yöneten ülkelerin sübvansiyon harcamalarını, yani alt gelir grubundaki insanların günlük yaşamlarını sürdürebilecek hükümet desteklerini kaldırma eğilimini görüyoruz. Artan vergileri görüyoruz ve bu yakın gelecekte, önümüzdeki süreçte Arap Baharı'na benzer yeni bir dalgayı, tıpkı Covid pandemisinde olduğu gibi ikinci, üçüncü, beşinci dalgayı tetikleyebilecek bir boyutta ilerliyor. Burada belki aktörlere, küresel aktörlere bazı roller düşüyor. Örneğin bu bahsettiğimiz fakirlik olgusunu, ekonomi politik sorunları baş edebilecek kaynakları sağlayabilirler bölgedeki ülkelere. Bunun dışında eğer içinde bulunduğumuz süreç mevcut ivmeyle devam ederse yakın gelecekte işte Suriye ve Irak'a ilaveten başka ülkelerde yeni istikrarsızlık atmosferiyle karşı karşıya kalabiliriz. Bunun en güzel kanıtı belki Lübnan olabilir.
Thank you very much. Dr. François.
What I've tried and do is connect my personal experience of this phenomenon and my background as an analyst of politics in the Arab world. If there was one word I would raise above all others of what has been said, it would be politics, and it would go even on top of what has just been said of economy. If there is bad economy, it's because there is bad governance. The migration from Syria did not start due to the economic crisis in 2008 or 9 or 10. It started after 2011, and it has a lot to do with bad governance. Then the economy crumbled. Yes, since I was not a specialist in the field of migration, I went on the internet and I read as much as I could on scientific approach to the problem of migration in Europe. And what I found made me optimistic, because real data, a vast majority of Syrian refugees, they are not in France. They are in Jordan, in Turkey, in Lebanon. I mean, a vast majority of the consequences in terms of migrations have not hit the economy of Europe. It has hit the economy of neighbor countries. And I read we have an institution in France, the Collège de France, and there is this real Syrian approach to the phenomenon of migration. There is a flow of migration toward Europe and toward France, but it's by no way I don't know if you get this French expression, grand remplacement, will replace, grand remplacement, replacing the population by another population. It's what the Westerners did all over the world during 19th century, when they went to Australia, when they went to Chile, when they were in North America. But by no means the figures can approach this process of violent replacement of population of France by immigration. So what I did, I mixed this restoration of a scientific, cold-blooded approach of the phenomenon with its root causes as I've experienced them. I think that the international migration and the reason why it has taken this ideological dimension has three main roots. First of all, I will concentrate upon France, but once again, it's an archetype. And it's true for UK as well. First of all, international migration is linked to colonial history. One of the main reasons why people come to France is, and I quote an expert, is that if they invite themselves in our country, it is mainly because we have invited ourselves in the most horrible way into their country. So we are highly responsible for distorting the endogenous development of the periphery of our colonial history, okay, first. Then I will tell you a personal story. In the early 60s, I come from the Alps, the French Alps. In the French Alps, you have a lot of industry linked to water, hydraulic electricity, because we have dams in the Alps, okay? My father was part of a steel factory in the heart of the Alps, and I visited the factory in the early 60s, and my father said to me, see these buses? 6 buses, brown buses. Each week, we send them to a place in Morocco. It's called Rif. We send them to Rif, and they come back full of workers. If these workers be here, my company wouldn't be that strong. In the early 60s, we were bringing Muslims in the social and cultural and economic fabric of France. We were asking them to come. So first, we had given millions of them the French nationality. So my two main points, international migrations are the result of a very voluntary series of politics until mid-70s, okay? Until mid-70s, until the oil boom, and this ends. But do not forget, the kids, their father, they are part of this wave of migration. But the third one, the third level of my analysis, I consider is the most, well, it's the one where I have my own expertise. I agree with the fact it is very significant that you have addressed the issue of migration with terrorist groups. But it is important that Ahmed al-Hussein said, okay, my problem is not with the terrorist group, it is with the regimes which produce these terrorist groups. If there is not foreign interference, if there is not massive foreign interference, a society by itself has never produced this extreme expression of politics if there is not someone from outside aggravating the dysfunctioning of the mechanism of representation. I mean, Syria by itself would not produce ISIS. Iraq by itself would not produce ISIS. Yemen by itself would not produce Al-Qaeda. It requires a foreign interference to make worse. If we want to address the issue of international migration, let's maybe address the poor understanding of the Western regimes toward the changes that go in every country of the South or East Mediterranean, and which produces political forces which are more or less labeled political Islam forces. Because this could be, at least it's my demonstration, this could be considered the root cause of France fueling autocratic regime which produce radical groups, which produce people running away from their homeland.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. I think we've had a wonderful, broad view of the topics that are key to understand the issue we're talking about. We've talked about key actors like terrorist groups. We've talked about economy as one of the root causes. Also about the management in the European countries as receptors, as receiving countries of migrants, and of course the big topic of politics. And then I think we should close the session. I think it has been a very interesting session. Thank you everyone for being here, for spending your time with us. I think it has been a great occasion to look on many topics, many issues. You have seen that this is a very complex reality, and we need all this information to start reflection and to find our place into all these conflicts. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, of course, to the colleagues on the table, which have given us great personal and professional perspectives and information. And thank to the translators on the back, who did a great job. Thank you very much. I hope we can find ourselves again together in another time to talk about these interesting issues. So thank you very much for being here, and good day. Okay.